Preface. I've decided once more to stay up all night. God knows why I did this again to myself, but I've decided once more to try and reset my sleep cycle by pulling what is colloquially known as an all-nighter, and it is currently about 8:15 in the AM, and I'm making myself some coffee. So what have I been doing all night? Keeping myself entertained. Well, my mum got Netflix recently, and she's decided to cancel it after 1 month. So I have a few days left, like a week and a half left of Netflix before the subscription ends. And I've been trying to make it through as much stuff as I can in that time, like Netflix originals and stuff. And I've stumbled across Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Now, if you don't know about Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, it's based on, it's a book by Douglas Adams, the guy famous for writing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I cannot close this with one hand. I gotta put this down. So Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency is a book written by Douglas Adams, the guy famous for writing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, when I was younger, when I was a kid, I read all 5 of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy. Yeah, it's a 5-part trilogy, that's the joke, or 4-part, I don't remember. I read all of them, and then I also read Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. When I say read, I mean listen to it on audiobook. My dad used to drive me to school every day and back from school, and we would listen to audiobooks in the car on CD. And that's how I read a lot of books back then, was in audiobook on the way to and from school. This is primary school I'm talking about, so I don't remember it super well. But I remember liking it. Yeah. And then, later on in time, I think about 4 years ago, the BBC made a Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency TV show. And that was pretty good, although it never finished. Never finished the story. It got cancelled after 1 season and never finished the story. The actor, funny story, the actor who played Dirk Gently, I randomly ran into him at one of the very few football games I've ever been to, at Wembley Stadium in London, which is the biggest stadium, at a Spurs game. That's this team that my dad supports. I don't really care about football, but I went there. So anyway, I've been watching this new Netflix Dirk Gently, and it's directed by Max Landis, who I don't really know much about, besides the fact that he has rainbow-coloured hair. The only thing of Max Landis that I've ever seen is his thing on he did a web series about Carly Rae Jepsen and how all her songs are actually about the same relationship. That's the only thing of his that I've ever seen, and I quite like that. But I don't know much about him besides that. I know he's a director and a writer, and I hear he's popular he came from the internet in some way. So that's basically all I know about him. I don't think I've ever watched it. I've never knowingly watched any of his other stuff. But yeah, this is the weirdest show I've ever seen. I'm not even gonna lie. It doesn't make any sense. Not as in the plot of the show, as in the writing is so... It doesn't make... I've never seen anything that I could compare to the writing in this show. Because it's somehow, both great and horrible at the same time. Characters would... Okay, most of the show is fine. The directing is fine. The soundtrack is great. The moment-to-moment editing could use some work, especially on the continuity side of things, but in general, it is passable. However, the dialogue is so fucking bad. It's like almost surreal. Like it almost feels like Twin Peaks, except that when Twin Peaks does it, it's good. I can't tell if it's on. Like, you know how the characters in Twin Peaks, like, a lot of them don't really speak like real human beings would speak. But, like, it's on purpose for characterization reasons and atmosphere reasons and plot reasons, and because a lot of them aren't real humans, you know, all that sort of thing. Imagine that, but they're supposed to. This guy just thinks that's how people talk. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So Dirk, firstly, the original show is set in the UK. They've moved it to be set in, as far as I can tell, San Francisco, I believe. And but Dirk Gently's still English, but he's gone from kind of like a. How do I compare the original Dirk Gently in the books? Is quite. He's not like this. He's more of a cynical Brit than what these guys have turned him into, which is sort of along the lines of like Matt Smith's Doctor Who, but with like, you know, a little bit of Sherlock, a little bit of Matt Smith's Doctor, but then some like a little more hyper than even that. It's weird. He doesn't. None of the characters make any sense. The dialogue is awful. Characters will just do things that are completely illogical, and like, you're just told when character development has happened, but never shown the characters actually developing. Like one, like the lead character, played by Elijah Wood, gets a crush on this other character, like starts to develop feelings for her, but you're never shown him actually developing feelings for her. You're just or anything that would indicate that they had any sort of chemistry at all, except for the fact that you're told that he now has feelings for this person. Or, for example, there's a real Shinji getting the robot kind of vibe with this thing where the Elijah Wood's character keeps saying that he doesn't want to be this guy's assistant, despite the fact that it's obvious he's going to become the guy's assistant, and he kind of already is. And it goes on like forever and ever. Every episode, like for the first like 4 episodes, he's just complaining constantly, like, go away, go away. And then they get trapped in this underground maze type place, and suddenly the characterization just completely changes of all the characters. I understand what he was going for. He wants it to seem like Elijah Wood's character really, really cares about his sister, but it just doesn't make any sense. So the hyper character who's always his, like, as far as I could tell, a lot of his characterization up to that point was just that he barges into situations without planning, and things just happen because he's Dirk Gently and he's like a psychic, and the universe is warping to his. Whatever he does is naturally the course that the universe wanted him to take, right? So he just barges into things without planning, and things just work themselves out. However, then they get trapped in this maze of like escape rooms essentially, and suddenly he's like terrified of everything, and he's like really cautious. Like it literally starts with him saying, hey, there's a passage, we should definitely go down this passage, it looks like a really cool scary passage. And then suddenly they go down the passage and end up in the room, and suddenly he's terrified and he's like, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, what if it's dangerous? 2 seconds ago there was a scene where he was the one saying that we should do the dangerous thing. It doesn't make any sense. The characterization is just nonsense, right? But then it will do some really clever things. Like there's the entire first episode, you know, like it's like Chekhov's guns out the wazoo. We're in Chekhov's armory right now. Chekhov has enough guns to arm a small military force at this point. The entire first few episodes are just setting up a bunch of MacGuffins, basically, a bunch of objects, a bunch of situations that you know are going to have to get sorted out. And that's fine, because that's kind of the point of Dirk Gently, is a bunch of seemingly independent things happen which are not connected, and then you slowly find out more information about how they are connected, and then they all slot into place, which is the entire satisfying thing that the book did, the BBC series did, and to a pretty good extent this series is doing. Sometimes it completely misses the mark, but other times it's perfect. Sometimes the way it misses the mark is that the tone of the series was not set up for the sort of supernatural things that happen, in my opinion. But now that it's got that shit out of the way, which I'm happy it did early, then it's fine. But it was pretty jarring when they started introducing like literal, like straight, like at first it could be explained away as a sort of a, you know, this is an odd thing in this universe, that there's this person who doesn't, the laws of fate kind of differ for, right? But then they just went straight to like straight up ghosts, so, and souls, and vampires type things. It's like, it was pretty jarring. I've got to say, but if you approach it as an early 2000s, late 90s light novel, urban fantasy kind of setting, it suddenly makes way more sense. This is what I've realized. It's reminding me a lot of like Kado no Kyokai, or like Boogie Pop Phantom, although not as good as Boogie Pop Phantom or Boogie Pop in general. I've only read the first book of Boogie Pop, but yeah, I tried watching the new series and I kind of didn't like it so much. But I'm getting off topic. The book of Boogie Pop was great. And it's got a similar kind of urban fantasy thing going on here, where it's like a regular environment with not regular things, but everything just sort of keeps going like normal, like it doesn't really affect the outside world. It's got that going, and it's doing it well. It's weird. This show's weird because it does some things like really great, like it's written by a really smart person, but then it can't do basic things like set up a character's motivations and then follow through on those motivations, beside in the most basic way, like this man cares about his sister. Oh, why does he care about his sister? They'll probably get to that. I haven't finished the show yet. I'm sure they'll get to like why he really cares about his sister so much later. But if this is an anime, I know why he would have cared about his sister so much, but let's not go there. But he really cares about his sister so much. But the only reason we know this is because they're constantly telling us that he cares about his sister. And sometimes they'll show it in a really good, subtle way. Other times it's so blatant and like it's written for 5-year-olds. I don't understand it. I don't understand how a show can be simultaneously great and terrible. I know I've been ragging on it so much, but the things that work, like, they just work. They're not the sort of things that you have to explain. And if I did, I'd have to explain the whole plot to get it through. My main problem with the show is honestly the English character. He's just so unbelievably wacky and just feels like someone who's an alien who crash landed in the internet in 2016 on the Super Hulock fandom, and that was what they thought human interaction was like all the time. It's just nonsense. It's insanity. Anyway, still, I would recommend it. But more, I'd recommend the book and the BBC show if you don't mind having unsatisfying endings to a show. But the book would definitely recommend it, as well as all of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. Support me on Patreon so I can pay my rent, and thank you for watching. Bitch, let's hope I don't fall asleep in like 10 seconds, because I'm stayed up all night and I'm dying, but here it is. The magical elixir of life. The magical elixir of life.